The target grammar for this lecture is passives. Passives are types of sentences that we use in English. We have two main sentence types: active sentences and passive sentences. Let's have a look at the difference between the two. Look at this first example. Someone broke into my house last week and stole my money. This is an active sentence. Now look at the next example. My house was broken into last week and my money was stolen. Here we have a passive sentence. What is the difference between the two sentences? Well, look at the first sentence. I've underlined the agent of the sentence, someone. The agent of a sentence is the person or thing that does something, the doer of the sentence. So someone did something in the first sentence. That someone broke into the person's house. But if you look in the passive sentence below, there is no doer. There is no agent of the sentence. We've deleted someone and we've changed the structure so that we don't need the doer of the sentence. Look at the example again. My house was broken into last week and my money was stolen. Was broken into and was stolen are passive structures. We'll learn the structure in the next lecture. So what is the passive sentence? Passive sentences don't require us to include the agent, the doing person or thing of a sentence. In the above sentence, the agent is someone we don't know. But because it's not important or unknown, we don't need it in the sentence. Passive sentences are useful when we don't know who the agent is. Like in the example I just gave, we don't know who broke into our house. Someone broke into our house. But the word someone is quite useless. It's irrelevant. So in this case, a passive sentence would be perfect. Instead of saying, someone broke into my house, I can simply say, my house was broken into. I've omitted the agent of the sentence because it's not important. I don't know who it was, so I can omit it. Now, there are a few other ways we can use passives. Let's have a look at the different ways we can use them. Here's the first one that we just went through already. Use a passive sentence when the agent is unknown. So I can say, my house was broken into last week. In this passive sentence, we have omitted the agent, the doer. This simply means an unknown person broke into my house last week. We can also use a passive sentence when the agent is people in general. So the example says, Italian food is loved all over the world. This simply means people in general love Italian food all over the world. The agent, people in general, doesn't need to be mentioned. And finally, we can use a passive sentence when the agent is not important. For example, the president was praised for his forward-thinking policies. So who did the praising? Who praised the president? Well, it was the people, the media, his colleagues, etc. They praised the president for his forward-thinking policies. But in this example, it's not so important. These people praised him, but they're not important to the sentence. Those are some of the situations where we can use passive sentences. Sometimes the agent, the doer of the sentence is simply not important. Sometimes it's people in general, so we don't have to mention it. And sometimes we just don't need to mention the agent because it's unimportant. It's not relevant to the sentence. We can also use passives to highlight the other person in the sentence. So in the sentence I just gave, the president was praised for his policies. We're highlighting the president. Maybe the writer wants to show off the president's policies. So instead of saying the media and the people praised the president, we're putting the president to the foreground. We're saying the president was praised. By who? Not important. The main focus is the president. So we can use passives like this as well. So we're omitting something that's not relevant to the sentence. Let's have a look at a few examples now. Here's the first one. The lucky lottery winner was given her prize of $25 million yesterday. The lucky lottery winner was given $25 million. Now, who is the agent of the sentence? Well, actually, it's not important. The most important thing is the lottery winner. She or he was given money. By who? It doesn't matter. So in this case, a passive sentence is perfect. Here is another example. Here is a beautiful example of Georgian architecture. It was built more than 200 years ago, and it stands as a proud monument to the city. Here we're talking about a building, a 200-year-old building, and the tour guide is saying it was built more than 200 years ago. Who built it? Well, perhaps it's unknown. Maybe they don't know exactly who built it. Or else it's not so important to the people. It's not relevant. So the tour guide, the speaker, doesn't want to mention it. He just wants to focus on the building itself, not the person who built it. Here is one more example now. Ed says, "When was the internet invented?" And Peter replies, "I think the internet as we know it today was popularized in the early to mid-1990s. In this example, Ed used a passive. When was the internet invented? So he's not mentioning who invented it because this is not important to him. He's just asking when it was invented. And Peter also uses a passive. He says the internet was popularized. This means it was made popular by people in general around the world. but he doesn't need to mention that. He doesn't need to say, people around the world made it popular. He can omit the agent in this example. Those are passive sentences. Now move on to the structure lecture. I'll see you there.